Hey guys, this is an Infinite Flash here. Today I'm going to be talking about what happened in, I'll be honest, probably the most exciting game of the match so far in Game 6. I think this was very entertaining. A lot of ups and downs for both players. It's a bit of a spoiler, but who cares? It's an exciting game, so that's not much of it. Let's see what happened. It's an even score right now, so this game is potentially crucial for either Carlsen or Anand right here. Magnus is playing white in this game, and Anand is playing black. Let's see what happened. This game we have a Sicilian defense, and instead of his g3 move, we have Carlsen choosing d4 in this game. Not much of a surprise. That's what he usually plays against the e6 Sicilian, and in this game we almost the normal move is like knight c3, and after that, I think queen c7 is what, a timeout of or something. I forget all the theory, or something with knight c f6 or something. I don't know anything about the Sicilian. c4, knight f6, developing the knight out, knight c3, and now bishop b4, threatening to capture here on e4. Yeah, and in this position, I think if I remember correctly, bishop d3 is the main move or something. I'm not too familiar, but Carlsen in this game shows queen d3, an interesting looking move where you give the option to protect the pawn this way. Maybe you want to develop your bishop via this route at some point. Also, the queen is just a very nice defender of all the critical squares in the center. Anand played knight c6. Um, you could definitely consider just capturing here, but after b takes, it's a little bit awkward to attack the structure, surprisingly. If you play queen c7, white's actually playing bishop a3, I think, and it's very difficult to castle on. d6 is probably already losing the game because the bishop takes d6, and it's very difficult to retain the pawn. King e7 is met by e5, so you can't do that, and then there's no move. Um, white would probably really win this position, actually, because of his very powerful activity. Strategically, I mean, he was winning. So, of course, Anand did not allow that. In this case, instead of capturing there, he decided to bring the knight out to c6, and Carlsen in this game decided to capture on c6 when Anand captured with the d pawn. I mean, certainly b takes is possible, but I don't know. This kind of structure doesn't look nice for black, where he's pushed back the knight. He has to move the knight again, I mean. So d6 allows this knight to go to this square. And after this, Carlsen captured the queen, and we got a queenless middle game going on here with surprisingly interesting play. e5 to push back the knight, and now this knight has to move again. The natural knight e4 doesn't actually work that well because of a3, and you can't capture here because I capture your bishop, and your knight is actually getting trapped. It's running out of squares. All the squares are covered by this bishop and by this pawn, by these pawns really. Just a very, very nice configuration for white. So you've got to capture by bishop if you want to grab the extra pawn. But actually here, white would play the strong move a4 to cut out the knight a4 move. And after, I don't know, maybe knight e4, what should white do? Probably bishop e3 and go for those dark squares right there. And, you know, probably f6 to allow the knight to come back to that square would be probably a good move, I think. And I wonder what white should do. Probably this one. And I mean, f5 is running into f3, so you've probably got to drop back the knight here, and f4, knight f7 looks pretty natural. White has tremendous compensation in a position like this with the rooks coming to the d file and the the dark squares here and the weak pawn structure here. This is really, really uncomfortable for black to play. I think that white has a lot of compensation. Um, Probably is better in that position, positionally a lot better. It's just a pawn though. So that's why Anand decided not to bring the knight out to the e4 square. If he plays knight e4 and a3, he really has to take on the c3. He really has to take that, so that was forced. In this case, Anand actually decided to play knight d7 and put pressure that way. Certainly that f4 was a possibility, but he wanted to make sure that his bishop has, the scope in the long run, I think, so he played bishop f4. And after this, Anand decided to recapture here. I mean, there's not much reason to allow the entire structure but to not to capture, you know. So takes, takes. Now king c7, developing the king to this nice safe square where the pawn is impeding this bishop's diagonal here. So it looks pretty solid to me. But actually, I think Carlsen is thinking of a very strong plan in this kind of position. At first, you might think these pawns are a serious weakness, but I think Carlsen decides to ignore it all and goes for a full-out positional attack on the king side here. Not attack so much, but pressure. It's kind of almost an attack in a way, but we'll see. He plays h4, and at first it doesn't really look clear what this does. He could also go bishop e2 or bishop d3. Either one of those is fine, but I like this one h4, and you'll see the idea. b6 to develop the bishop to this square, but now Carlsen continues with h5. And if he's left unimpeded, he's going to play h6, probably the rook to this square, and he might even consider castling or probably bring the rook once it gets to d1 to the d3 and f3 squares. That looks extremely uncomfortable for black to play. Looks like a Carlsen gotten bad for him. You can't really play g6 because I'm taking, and bishop g5, probably bishop e7, bishop d6, and this is a very, very uncomfortable structure for black. So instead of g6, or allowing h6 with that kind of structure, and black ending up with a very, very weak pawn. If you're a Carlsen player, you understand this kind of structure. This is not very comfortable for black. So in the end, he ended up playing h6. The natural move, white ended up castling, and after bishop b7, the very normal move, rook d3. We saw the rook coming to either of these squares and pressuring the queen side. Black could have played knight c5 in this position, but I think that after rook f3, probably rook f8, and bishop e3 to attack the knight, considering to capture this and leave black with a really, really bad pawn structure. Knight e4, probably c5, and well, this position's not looking that great. Probably knight has to capture, and pawn captures runs into bishop d3, I think. So takes, takes, and rook h4 leaves white clearly better with this very nice pawn structure and the rook to swing across here at any moment. We have this rook having the ability to go to this square. The bishop can plant itself right here. That feels very nice for white. I think white's clearly better, I think, positionally. So that's not very nice for black. This position's already going pretty downhill. I think Carlsen just plays amazing strategic chess, and it's really hard to see where Anand went wrong in this kind of game. I don't know. I mean, I just find that Carlsen's play is very strong here. c5. Well, not in this game, I mean. But I meant, like, so far. It's very difficult to see where Carlsen has made any bad moves, and Anand has all the pretty decent pieces, but it's just the problem is he lacks space and his king side is weak. So c5 was played to open up this bishop. We saw the rook come into this square to defend the g pawn, potentially move up the bishop and get pressure against the pawn right there. Defense to this square. I think he doesn't really want to go to this rook because of bishop d3 and bishop h7 actually. It's very difficult to defend the h7 square if your rook is over there, so you got to do it with the other rook. Rook g8, bishop d3, and now knight f8. Yeah, I mean, I think white is clearly better in this kind of position, given that these pieces are really lonely on the king side right here, and white has extremely active bishops and a very nice rook that can come here in the future. So we saw bishop e3, just slow play. White can think about f4 in this position, rook somewhere here, and push the g pawn. That is a very nice structure for white. In this case, we saw black break out and lash out with g6, and well, white doesn't really have an option but to really take the pawn, I think. Potentially, if you don't take, I think black would be welcome to playing g5 or even g takes h5 to open up the position for his rook right here. He decided to capture. Sorry about that, guys. That's a glitch right there by the chess.com live server. H takes g6, and we have to note that you pretty much have to play this one. this knight takes g6 move. If you take f takes, I think white is getting pretty much, black is getting no compensation for the pawn right here. I mean, there's pretty much nothing here for black, and in fact, I'm going to capture here and captures here next move, and you're going to be probably down a pawn for nothing in some form or way. So in the game, instead of the f pawn captures, he decided to captures with the knight right here. And now Carlsen makes another very fine move. This pawn is hanging, so you got to be careful about that. So he brings the rook down over here to support this pawn. Bishop c6 by Anand, slightly improving the bishop, and from here we saw a strategic, just maneuvering kind of thing right here. Bishop c2, king b7, g4, 5, bishop d1. Each side is just trying to get their pieces more and more ideal places, but I don't like the bishop right over here, so he decided to bring it back. Anand repeated. I mean, obviously white has a lot more space, and but the better pieces, more active pieces, the bishop pair, and even though he has a slightly weakened pawn structure, this doesn't really matter. I think these double pawns are actually a strength because they control everything along the d file. The bishop, I mean, for those two squares too. But I think white should be very happy about this position. But here, it's a very interesting thing that's happening. White can play f3 if he wants to blunt this bishop. He can play f4 to try to potentially gain space eventually. He can possibly think about bringing the rook here eventually once, I don't know, somehow get the diagonal blocked, but that's a long-term plan. You can think about taking the pawn soon at some point. I mean, f4 followed by somehow getting the rook over here. Not an easy plan, but just somehow attacking the weak pawn is one kind of plan that white can think about. But in this game, in this position, Carlsen actually makes a terrible move in this position. It looks totally normal that he would play king g2, right? But the problem is that black actually can play knight takes e5. This is actually what Carlsen played, king d2, and it's actually just losing the game for Carlsen right away. Anand played knight takes e5, and well, the normal move is of course rook takes g8 when you notice your rook was hanging by this rook's, and the thing is Anand can just capture the pawn over here. King d3, knight b2, and you can't attack the knight anymore. After king e2, rook here. I don't know, g3 probably by white. Sure, white gets the pawn back, but he's going to be down an extra pawn right here on the queen side, and black should probably win in the long run in this position, given this very nice active. He has very nice active minor pieces, and pieces in general should be a win for black. Instead of taking the free pawn, I guess Anand psychologically just thought, okay, everything's defended by white. White has a complete bind right now. So he ended up trying to play maneuvering moves still. He just didn't notice that knight takes e5 was on. I would say that Carlsen got lucky there because he clearly blundered there. He played a4. Anand. It's a very, very disappointing move, and I guess he missed his opportunity to take a lead in the match, given that this is probably just winning the game. Anand has great technical play in converting endgame positions. One of the world's best endgame players, really. And after this, I mean, pretty much white is in the driver's seat. I think white has a clear advantage in this kind of position. He just improves the position from here. And we saw a slow progression here of the bishop coming back to this square, and the bishop's coming here and just attacking and controlling every one of these important squares right here. It's very, very difficult to play as black, and from here it's, I would say, a one-way street. Not very fun to play for black. I mean, here black is really running out of moves in this kind of position. We already can see that this kind of stuff is already threatened, and well, I mean, this is very tough to defend. I think bishop a4 was threatened to try to get to the pawn here on the queen side, but white just played this check, and I mean, the natural move bishop c6 is what Anand played. I mean, no one else and their mom would consider the computer move king a7, with this kind of stuff, and well, I think this is just something we immediately dismiss if we're not a computer. Some kind of line like that where I highly doubt anybody would end up playing that kind of stuff. And well, the thing about this position is that even if you sorry about you guys, I meant rook g7 first. Knight takes here, I don't know, king here. The thing about this position is black's pawns drop and the pawn pushes anyways. I think white wins anyway, probably. So it didn't really matter, I guess, if Anand played that or not. Anyways, that's a strange computer line. After checks, he decided to just move the bishop back, the normal move, obviously, the most obvious move in the world, but the problem is white just captures the knight here on the g6 square, and even though we're getting opposite colored bishops, it is not very clear how to make use of the drawing chances. Everything is weak here, and white will get like 3 pass pawns on a normal day. On a good day, black is probably only allowing 1 pass pawn here, probably the g pawn, and even that is good enough to win in my opinion. Bishop a4 to try to allow to get the rook active. Rook takes e6 now. I mean, there's no defense of these pawns. If you play like defensively, like this game's lost. Rook d6, rook takes here, rook here. White is pretty much just in the driver's seat. He can play bishop a3, I guess, at some point. I don't know, maybe you can just advance the pawns too. Maybe starting with g4, f4, and maybe now, right? g4, and now that the bishop is here, you can now play f4, and that's pretty much curtains. Black has nothing in this kind of position. So there's no choice but to play actively in this kind of position. Anand has got his hands tied behind his back here. So bishop a4, rook takes e6, rook d1 getting the rook active, and after bishop takes here, rook a1 trying to capture the pawn over here. Magnus played a prophylactic move and developing the king to a more active square right over here. Bishop hc2 is not doing that much in my opinion. I think at this point Anand knew his position was really bad, and I mean clearly white is in the driver's seat given that he's a bunch of passed pawns coming on, pushing themselves soon. Black can also play bishop takes, rook takes e2, but I think white would just drop the bishop back here, and I don't know, if he captures the pawn and this kind of stuff happens, and a lot of new queens are going to be coming on the board soon. And black really doesn't have any play against that at all. The bishop's a bit silly placed, and I mean this pawn structure is extremely solid for white, and white would win, I think, easily. That was probably the best that black had, but I mean if that's the best that black had, then this is not very good looking, I think. Bishop c2, and after rook e7, Anand actually resigned the game. I think there's an easy plan to see here with f4, g4, f5, f6, and eventually take the pawn right here and just push the pawns to victory. Something like that kind of plan is unstoppable for black. Now, if you're wondering, I think after king a7, I think white would just captures here, and the thing is you can't even capture this pawn is because of bishop takes b6, and there's a lot of fast pawns on the board, and black is dead here. So overall, I would say a heartbreaking loss for Anand, who it's hard to say where he got outplayed. I mean, definitely he got outplayed, but it was surprising how fast his position went downhill, in my opinion. This is just a strong plan by Carlsen on the king side, in my opinion. It's very unfortunate that Anand came across just a very good plan like that. Maybe I'm not sure where he could have improved. Maybe, I don't know, something about this opening is very strange, honestly. I don't understand. Like this reminds me of last year's game in the Marshall Gambit, is that right? In the Marshall Gambit, Queen's Gambit line, where they get this early queen trade, and then Carlsen just slowly outplayed Anand. Well, in that game, and Anand clearly had a few mistakes, but this game, it's just very nice for Carlsen because he's just slowly taking space, and the bishop pair is just a nice asset in this position, even though you have these two weaknesses here. And, well, there's not much of a plan against what Carlsen is doing here. He eventually played g6 and tried to play actively, but I mean, taking the free pawn probably would have helped too if he did that. Yeah, here it's just a missed opportunity to win the match, really. I feel like if Anand won and took the lead, I feel like Carlsen would be psychologically broken. I feel like that would definitely be true, and this is just a very disappointing result for Anand. I don't think he realized it during the game, but I wonder about the press game, post game press conference. What were they thinking? And once he didn't play knight takes e5 and should have a winning position, he got this kind of stuff where he's just getting mowed down by Carlsen's very nice technical play, world class and endgame and technical play. And there's not much play you can do against the passed pawns here on the king side right over here. So anyways, guys, I think that was a very exciting match, no doubt. Anand missing his chance to probably win the match. Carlsen taking and keeping his endgame advantage and just pressing Anand into a very uncomfortable position right here. So overall, I think exciting game with quite a number of mistakes, inaccuracies too. But that's what we like to see, I guess. I think just a great game to see. And also thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate when you guys view the video and like and even subscribe if you're just a regular viewer. That'd be awesome if you would subscribe. So I'll be seeing you guys on in a couple days. I'll be covering Game 7 soon. All right, guys. Peace out.